Welcome to Inside the Cohort, a podcast specifically dedicated to the stories of the executive MBA program at Columbia Business School, class of 2027. I'm your host, Mitchell Black, and today is our first episode. Couldn't be more excited. I want to take a moment and explain why this podcast was created. You see, I would meet all of the wonderful people in our cohort and I'd have great conversations. And after having that conversation, I'd talk to somebody else and say, "Oh, did you meet so and so? Did you hear about them?" And a lot of times they'd say no. And I kept thinking, well, you should. Like, there's some great people here with great stories. And as busy as we are, it's nearly impossible to meet every single person, hear every single story, and learn everything about them. So, what I wanted to do is make a podcast to share your stories. And that's what we're going to do. Every other week, we're going to share a different classmate story, all centered around who are you and what do you do? And the idea behind that was every time in my life that I met somebody successful, somebody with the Ferrari, somebody with the jet, somebody with the cool job, it was always, who are you and what do you do? Like, I just want to know. And we have a lot of successful people, a lot of amazing people. Our first guest today is Justin Wisnicki. I have gotten to know Justin. He was one of the first people that I talked to once getting in. And I think this is going to be a wonderful conversation. So settle in, turn up the dial, and let's get rocking and rolling. Welcome, Justin.
Well, thank you. And I didn't realize I was your first guest. Hopefully, we can make it beyond one episode after I'm finished
We're coming
telling
out
my story.
swinging with the heavy hitters.
Well, I can't think of anyone better to put together this project and host this because I remember you reached out several months before we started, and I think you've been so emblematic of what it means to be a connector, not just in your cluster, but throughout our whole cohort. So this is befitting.
Well, I appreciate you. Thank you. Um, so with the whole topic of who are you and what do you do, starting with it, just where'd you grow up? Where are you from?
Yeah, well, I'm actually sitting in my childhood home right now because it's the holidays. I grew up in West Palm Beach, Florida, Wellington specifically, for those who know the area. Um, Grew up in the same house the whole childhood, so that was very nice and stable. And then I moved to New Orleans for college to go to Tulane University, where I met
Okay.
my wife, who was there golfing. Um, and after college, we graduated the year of the pandemic. So I came back here unexpectedly, but started working my first job out of college at Alpha Sites, which is a market research firm. I was focused on private equity firms. I did the first year and a half from home, where I learned I really don't like working from home, and I didn't have the option at that point. So as quickly as possible, I moved to New York, where I obviously live now. I live downtown in Battery Park, and it's been great being in the city finally.
That's awesome. To rewind a little bit, I was looking at your LinkedIn earlier and you were an executive producer.
So wow, you really did your research for this. Yes, so I attended film school for a short period of time, not a degree or anything, but just a program. And I made some friends for life. I was one of the few Americans in that program. And it's where I first learned I really enjoy having an international and diverse group of friends. And it's one of the things that attracted me to Columbia and has been most rewarding since being here. But one of my closest friends at this camp was a guy from Mexico who wanted to be a director. Okay, everyone's at film camp. What I found out 2 months in was that he was actually one of Mexico's biggest child stars. He had started a movie called For Greater Glory with Andy Garcia. He can't walk the streets of Mexico City without being recognized. But I didn't know any of this until someone Googled him and said, "Do you know who Mauricio is?" And I said, "Yeah, he's my friend." And no, he's a huge star. But he wanted to move away from acting into directing, so he didn't even tell anyone. And after this program, he approached me and said he has this vision for a short film called Lucendi, which is a love story. It was without words, just music, a silent film, so it could be played internationally at film festivals around the world. He needed a producer, um, and he wanted to film in New York. So I took on that challenge, led a crew of about 23 people, we ended up being, and we submitted it to film festivals around the world, won many of them, which is a crazy experience to have people who may not speak your language or understand your culture, but resonate with a piece of art you play a part in.
That is so interesting. I never knew that. What a cool story.
Yeah, and then we actually went on to do a second one, which also did very well around film festivals. But these projects are intensive and exhausting, 18-hour days coordinating wonderful filmmakers and artists and actors from around the country and world in many cases. So it's not something you can do on the side. So unfortunately, I haven't produced one in several years, as my focus has been elsewhere.
Man, but what a neat thing. Like not a lot of people can say that. That's really, really cool. You said you met your wife golfing. Does she golf a lot or do you golf?
She golfs. I'm a spectator. Sometimes she lets me drive the golf cart, but most of the time I'm not allowed to do that. She was a golfer. She was captain of the French national women's team and spent her whole childhood playing golf. Essentially, she didn't go to typical school in middle school or high school. She was traveling the world with the national team, and so she was recruited by Tulane to play golf. She didn't speak a lot of English when she arrived, which is the key to getting along with me in many cases. I think that's what the first year of our relationship was predicated on. And by the time she started to understand what I was saying, it was too late. We got married shortly after in 2022 in her village in France. Her mayor married us, and she then moved to New York, where she lives with me now.
And you said she's from a small town, right?
So small, the McDonald's is the village over. It's in the Loire Valley, about 10,000 people, and it's just like Beauty and the Beast when you go. No tourist would usually go to this town, but you stop by the the bread, the baker, or you get your meat from the slaughterhouse, or everything. There's no Walmart, there's no big grocery store. It's all very individualized. It's very authentically French, and they have very few foreigners. Most of the people in the village haven't left the village. They certainly haven't been to the US. So she's had a remarkable journey from growing up in this town to traveling the world for golf, going to an American university, and now she's a consultant here in New York.
Wow, what a shift. I didn't think you were gonna arrive at consultant. And
Yeah, everyone ultimately arrives at consultant. That's what I've learned in my career. No matter what you're doing, you eventually arrive at consultant.
that's hilarious. So uh so you guys got married when?
We got married 4 years ago.
Okay. It was like
Yeah.
2021. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, maybe three and a half. 2022.
Speaking of spectators, you were the spectator at the New York City Marathon.
That's right. I had another chance to watch my wife complete an incredible athletic achievement. She ran and finished the marathon this year, and she had never run a marathon before. She actually hates running. Um, a family member suggested to her she could not do it and should not try, and that was enough to embark on a 9-month journey of training and getting into shape to do it. She ran for a charity that we're on the junior board of called Part of the Solution in the Bronx, which is an incredible organization that not only serves food to some of the poorest residents of New York City, but also provides career services, legal help fighting evictions, provides showers. It's about not just delivering the necessities, but doing it with dignity in a way that elevates people out of crisis. So it's an incredible organization that we've been involved in.
Man, good for you guys. Did you have any ties to New York? Or I mean, I understand that you went back to Florida and you said the COVID thing, but then what ultimately drew you to New York?
Yeah, well, Florida is the southernmost borough of New York, so I think everyone in South Florida has some tie. My father's from Queens, in Flushing. I have lots of family in New York, so it always felt like a natural place to start and advance my career because I had those ties, and it's the center of most industries I was interested in growing up. So I always knew, even from a young age, before I even knew what I wanted to do, that I wanted to do it in New York.
What going to a young age as you're figuring it out, what were some of the things that you wanted to do?
I was dead set on marketing for a long time. I did an internship in college for Interbrand, a big branding agency, clients like Google and Amazon. So really cool pinnacle of the sexy marketing that you think of in New York. Um, but marketing is a very tough space. And it's very difficult to stand out, in my opinion. Those who have done it, and I know there's folks in our class doing it, I have such admiration for them because of how crowded it can be. So to achieve something in it is incredible. I also realized something about myself, which is I need more quantitative results in many cases.
Mm.
You're putting together a branding deck, and two people with equal experience and credibility could have completely different opinions on it. One thing I like about private equity and working with executives in private equity is, if a deal is a five bagger, everyone agrees that's a good thing and everyone walks away with a lot of money. So that's something that made me want to change space. This is a bit more concrete.
Did you make that shift like after working experience or just after the internship?
After the internship, I never
Okay.
did it. And it's sort of a panic mode because you envision your internship being your entree into the workforce. But I said I need to do something else, and I thought long and hard about what that might be. I ended up in market research, which I think was a stepping stone to where I'm at today at Lancor doing executive search and deal advisory.
Okay. So did you ever not start in private equity or did you jump? Yeah, I mean you did that little deal.
Yeah, I market research was in private equity. I didn't know I wanted to do private equity. I was randomly placed on this team, and it was a very happy accident because there's a lot I like about working with private equity firms as clients. They're fast moving. Everyone has a really standard way of keeping score on deals, which I like. And I think private equity over the past 20 years has attracted some of the best and brightest. So it's a privilege to work with them, and I can learn a lot from them. I think you're seeing that now in the AI space, right? If you're a smart person who can go to a number of companies, they're going to go into AI. I think for the past 20 years, it's been private equity because you can do it across any industry, any size. There's a lot of flexibility within the space.
So I understand that we're all in business school, but there's a lot of parts of business in business. Can you take a moment and explain what is private equity and how does it work?
Yeah, well, they've written books on the subjects, and there's 10 times as many books on the opinions of it. But essentially, in its most basic form, a private equity firm is given money by investors. Think Columbia's endowment, billionaire, high net worth individuals, pension plans, and they make a pitch to the investors that they can invest this money into private businesses that are not publicly traded, that they may not know about. And there's a lot of ways they can do this, but essentially what makes private equity so special or successful, or the secret sauce, is that they buy a business partially with equity, and then they put a lot of debt on the business to buy it. So they might put, when it first started out, they were putting like 99% debt on these businesses, which is a very precarious place to put them. And that's what the 80s were like, not that I was there for it. But now it's about 50-50. So they're buying a business for $10 million. They put up 5 million of equity. They put 5 million of debt on the business. So if you invest 5 million, you're getting $10 million worth of a business. You sell it for 50 million down the road. So instead of 5x your return, if you put up the 10 million all in equity, you're getting 10x your return. And the bankers get their 5 million plus interest back on the debt. So when it works really well, and you can make a lot of money. When the business declines, like we saw with a lot of businesses during COVID, they often go out of business because they have a lot of debt on them. So they're not able to sustain through that. The businesses get taken by the lenders. So that's private equity in a nutshell, but I'm happy to go into any part of that because it was very high level.
No, that's great. And I think it gives everybody a lot of context. We can spend a lot of time on your little niche specifically because what you
Yes.
do in private equity is very interesting. So you have these companies and they go out and they buy other companies.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, there's a person that has to run that company. And you can do all the Excel sheets that you want, but there is an individual in charge. And that's where you come in.
That's right. And I think, you know, when private equity first started, there wasn't a lot of competition for businesses. You could buy them, lever them up, and probably do pretty well. Now there's 1,700 private equity firms is one of the estimates out there. So if you're a really good business, a lot of people want to buy you. So the question is, once you buy one of these businesses, what can you do to make it more successful than the other people who wanted to buy it? And the answer here has become less about leverage, which everyone has access to. You can always try to pay a little bit more, but every, dollar you pay more makes it a less good investment. So the answer is often operational. How do you actually improve this business? How do you pull the value creation levers? Who does this? Either the C-suite, CEO, CFO, which I know many of our classmates are destined to become and will be very successful at, and then also operating partners who are people who had previously been in the C-suite who now work for the private equity fund and help their businesses across a number of the portfolio companies. So they'll be working with 3 or 4 CEOs at various businesses, giving their advice from their experience.
Okay. So where does your company fit with all that?
Yeah, so there's 2 ways we work with our private equity clients. The first is you just bought a business. It's a family-owned business, as many of our classmates have. And you get there and you realize, well, it's a very successful business. The family knew what they were doing, but there's certain aspects of, say, the finance department or the accounts receivable department, as we've learned, that just aren't as good as they could be because the people who are running them have only been at one business. So you often professionalize those. How do you bring in better software, better people, better things like that? So we bring in CEOs, CFOs who have done it 3 or 4 times before and successfully sold their businesses. And then the other way is working with those same executives to figure out what's interesting in the market to actually buy. And this is the deal advisory side of things that I think is more differentiated than our executive search side. Say we're talking to the CEO of a logistics business on a search, and he decides, this particular business isn't for me. In a typical executive search firm, that's the end of the relationship. Or I'll call you again when I have another job you don't want. What we do is track lots of these businesses that are coming to market and say, okay, there's 250 private equity backed logistics businesses. What would you buy, CEO? And that CEO really likes this exercise because it's no longer just waiting around to get a call. It's actually figuring out how to do a deal. And then we go to our private equity clients and say, who wants to work with this CEO? You have a great operator, but you also have someone who is thinking about what's good in the market. So it's no longer just looking at an Excel or the EBITDA and saying this company is good or bad. It's having someone who's actually run companies similar to this saying what's good or bad. So that's part of our value driver right now, and it's the fastest growing part of our business.
That makes a lot of sense because like I jokingly say that there's no shortage of money. There's a shortage
Yeah,
of
it's true.
courage, there's a
Yeah,
shortage of creativity, but there's not a shortage of money. There's so much money floating around. And from what I'm hearing, you have all these, LPs with all this money and but they don't want to run the company. They just, it sounds like a good thing to
exactly.
run. And then outside of that, I heard logistics was great. I don't know what logistics company to buy. I don't know how to run it. So it seems really advantageous to have this, head coach come in and be like, let me tell you what you need to buy. I'm going to run it. Here's the plan. You put up the money.
That's right. And you highlighted something very true. That's a big challenge for private equity firms. That there, of the 1,700 firms I mentioned, 25 raised half of all the dollars. So you have a lot of concentration of that money. So you have firms, Apollo, KKR, for example, that have a lot of money and need to do bigger and bigger deals. And you have a long tail of smaller, middle and lower middle market firms that are trying to figure out what to buy. They can't take company public or take a public company private. They have to figure out what's the mom and pop shop that, is a great business, but I can buy, and why should they partner with me versus, one of the 1,699 other PE firms that are after them. And I think the ability to bring in great people is part of that, either on the board, in the C-suite, as an operating partner. It shows that, there's no shortage of money. They all have money, as you said. How do you differentiate beyond the number of dollars? So that's a key element of why private equity firms work with us.
Yeah, I found it really interesting. You were actually hosting a booth at the CBS networking event that we did last week, and I didn't know that you were going to be there. But I hear so much about Alex Partners and I believe it's
Yeah.
Marzell and Alvarez. And I remember when you and I were talking, you said that all my private equity clients work with those guys, and then they
Yeah.
work with you to source those deals. It seems like everybody has a little piece of the ecosystem.
Yeah, the private equity ecosystem is vast, and a lot of folks want to get into private equity and go work for a private equity fund, which is an amazing gig if you can get it. But there's a lot of other opportunities that private equity has created from the legal side, from the tax and accounting side. Every deal that gets done brings along a parade of vendors and partners that are part of it in a various way. So if you can become really good at one of those things and get lots of calls from PE firms, be part of every deal, now you're no longer betting that you can win a single deal. We co-invest in everything we do. So at the end of the day, I want to see one of my clients successful, and I have a stake in all of them. If you go work for a private equity fund, you're a lot less diversified in your ability to be financially successful.
That's a good point. I mean, the whole thing is tongue in cheek, but it's a form of gambling, and you're trying to hedge your bets as much as possible. So if you can have as little liability through as many domains as possible, that sounds wonderful. What's a typical day for you?
Well, my day has changed a lot over the past couple of years. I'm now an engagement manager in New York. I'm actually the only engagement manager in New York. I report directly to our managing partner, and I have a team of five incredible analysts, consultants, admins I work with to basically find and speak with the top executives in every industry that private equity is touching. So my day could range from a client calling me and saying, we need a CFO for this new business we acquired, and me saying, all right, who do we know? Who should we get to know to solve this problem for our client? A client came to me uh, earlier today. They're looking at a automated welding business. This is not something I knew existed, right? But what we're good at isn't understanding automated welding, it's understanding who knows automated welding, and connecting them, getting them to buy in to our client's story and why they should partner with them, and then making the introductions, helping them get deals done, and then co-investing in those deals.
That was very clear and very concise.
I can go longer if you'd
No, that was good.
like.
What is the most challenging part of your job?
Well, human beings are very messy, right? It's in accounting with Ziv, we're learning how everything should balance, and there's spreadsheets, and it's almost cathartic for me because you don't get that on the executive search side, right? It's a human, emotionally charged exercise where you're getting highly successful people, people who have been multi-time CEOs, have made a ton of money where they don't have to do anything. And you're getting them to bet the next 5 or 10 years of their career on you and your client, and you're aligning yourself financially with them. And so the challenge almost always comes from people, deciding or getting fearful around a particular offer. People wanting to get more out of a situation. The uncertainty that comes with a lot of the compensation coming from equity, right? If, you're making a bet, private equity loves to align incentives. I'm sure we'll study that down the road in the core, where private equity is probably better than anyone at aligning incentives between the LPs themselves and the executives. So you're betting that not just that you're going to make X amount each year or a bonus, but that you're going to make $5 or $10 million if things go well. And so it requires long-term thinking and dealing with a lot of people who are making high stakes, very personal decisions.
You only deal with companies that are going well, or are you involved in any sort of restructuring process where they need a total new management?
Yeah, well, no one replaces the CEO when it's going well.
Okay.
Right. So we do deal with companies going well when they're first acquired, but everything's going well at the beginning. It's like a relationship, right? If someone's complaining on the second date, it's probably not a fit. You shouldn't get married. But we'll get a call where they were supposed to sell this thing in 4 years. We're in year six. That's not a good sign. And a lot of things need to be changed. And so fortunately, there's a lot of very talented executives who specialize in turnaround situations. So people ask me what makes a good CEO all the time. It's about the specific situation a company is in. Sometimes you need a growthy CEO who knows how to push people to do more and, what new areas is the company going to explore. Other times you need someone who's there to fix what's broken.
Mm.
And these are two different people. And so there's other situations companies can be in. But if you're considering becoming a member of the C-suite, which I think most people in our cohort should be considering at the very least, it's not enough to think CEO, CFO, COO. What type do you want to be? What situations do you thrive in? And then private equity gives you the chance to do it many, many times and do very well along the way.
I I would couldn't agree with that more. I've had a small vision of what it's like to be a CEO in the companies that I started,
Yeah.
but I had to sell those companies at different stages for different reasons because I'm good at part of it, I'm not good at another part of it, and you absolutely need to know that in that process. It sounds like a lot of what you're trying to find in these people.
Yeah, I think that's right. What's your favorite part of running businesses? What stage do you think you thrive in?
Growth and turnaround.
Okay.
And I didn't realize that for a really really long time when I was working in corporate America. All my jobs were turnaround jobs, and I just thought they were fun. Like I was young, and I was like, "Yeah, let's go." I just thought it was part of the job. I didn't realize that I liked that. And then after starting my company, and I started buying all these other companies, I realized that what I was really doing was buying distressed businesses
Hmm.
and figuring out ways to restructure them or raise capital or finance the debt or do all these things. But I was very young, so I'm just thinking, fun, this is neat, new project. But actually, where I'm the most terrible is when everything's going great and you just wanted a nice 3% growth every year. I get bored, I get restless, I don't know what to do. I need a finite problem. You have 60
Yeah.
days, 90 days, get to this number, grow it. And every time I get it there, I hire somebody to take it over or I sell that entity and carve it out. I can't handle it anymore.
It's a really interesting point, and it reflects a new way of thinking, I think, for many C-suite executives. On the public company side, a CEO is successful if he or she can be at the company 30 years, right? Same with a smaller private business. Leaving is usually a sign of failure. Private equity isn't that way, right? You want to grow it, maybe you grow it again with another firm, but then you leave and go do it again with another situation where you're starting from the same size and industry, same, set of circumstances, and moving to the same size again. And that's considered successful. Um, we do a lot of chief transformation officers, which is a relatively new position in private equity-backed businesses, but a really important one where a person is in charge of making a finite set of changes, implementing a plan for often 2 years, right? And if they're going more than 2 years, that's a sign of failure, not success. In some cases, these can be designed in different ways. And then they go on and do it again at another company. And so the beauty of private equity, and there's problems with it too, is they offer these opportunities for people who get good at something specific to do it in a repeatable way versus sticking with the same company, getting your gold Rolex watch when there was probably a small percentage of the time where you were at your peak of abilities.
Yeah, that's I mean, I think specialization is really, really important. So you sound super smart. You sound like you've done a lot, and you
I've tricked
sound
you.
really, yeah, you sound really charismatic. A lot of good traits that could grow a career. Why are you getting your MBA?
Well, if someone had told me that prior to me paying tuition, I probably wouldn't have done it. Um, no, I appreciate the kind words, but I have a lot to learn, right? I love my company because it's small, but there's also very few people I can look up to. My boss has been an incredible mentor, but that's one person, right?
Right.
So, Columbia to me is the chance to learn from dozens of other people who are doing amazing things in their career and do it in a very intense way, which I like. I'm not satisfied with a monthly mentor meeting and patting myself on the back of that. I want to drink from a fire hose and learn about various career paths. My network is also all private equity focused, right? These are amazing, smart, ambitious people, but there's more to the world than private equity, at least for now. Private equity is going to buy everything eventually, but today there's more to the world. And so to be in to move from an execution network to an opportunity network, to put it in Professor Laughlin's language, was really important to me. And that's something I think has been hit out of the park by all of our classmates. I've been so impressed with what they've been able to accomplish, their openness to sharing how they've done it. And regardless of the class schedules, regardless of the ebbs and flows of if we're happy with certain things on a certain day, that's a constant for me. And that's why I'm elated to be part of the program.
What has been something that stood out to you in a learning moment? It can be, a steep learning curve, or maybe just something that you're like, oh wow, I never thought of that before.
It's a really good question. I think, you know, um, I never thought I would like accounting, and I don't want to be an accountant. I know that, but that class has been enlightening to me, relating the numbers to real life situations. And this is a shortfall of many private equity firms, is not relating the numbers to a real life situation. But I think the most successful investors are able to do that, right? The numbers are just reflective of something happening on a factory floor, in a hospital, in a restaurant. What are those things? What are the interactions of those people and how they're operating? uh, our accounting professor, and I think many people would agree with me, brings those stories to life in a really exciting way and translates it in a way that even someone who is not numbers driven, is not inherently good at accounting, can not just understand, but be enthusiastic about. So that's been a welcome surprise.
That's good. That's very positive. And I understand that you're probably, you probably pick Columbia because it's close to home. You don't have to travel a lot, but you
Yeah.
also have NYU. You also have Cornell. What drew you towards Columbia?
I've never heard of those two schools you mentioned.
They're small, teeny
They're
tiny
small. Yeah,
trade
I
schools.
mean, uh, listen, I'm sure if I didn't get into Columbia, I'd have to look at other lesser schools. But I'll say this because I'm pandering to the audience, but I think if you're going to get your MBA, you should do it from the absolute best school possible. It's not like becoming a doctor where you're a doctor no matter what school you go to. It's not like becoming an engineer where your skill set is so technical. I think for an MBA to be worth what we're paying for it, you have to go to a top school. Columbia is one of the best and certainly the best in New York. So it's a very easy decision.
Yeah, I definitely, agree. I would echo with you on that. I've never found just the generalization of going to college insanely useful.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, maybe. I think it could do more at like professionalizing you for life, getting used to having
Yeah.
responsibility and stuff more so than. But when you go for intentionality, that's a whole different ball game. When you're going to be the doctor, the lawyer, the whatever, that is insanely different. And then the caliber of what you're going to learn there, that's to me, that's the true value of schooling.
I agree. And I think that's what makes any MBA more more difficult to choose from because we don't all want to be the same thing. I think where we end up is going to differ from where we thought we were going to end up at the beginning of the program. We're going to influence each other. So the people in the program matter a lot more than if you go to medical school or law school. Because in those cases, you might be competing against them, but everyone's going to end up in the same profession, more or less. We have a chance to influence each other in a positive way. So more so than the curriculum, more so than the professors or the fancy building, it's about all of us. And I think that's what I was choosing was what school gives me the highest likelihood of being surrounded by the absolute best people. And my hypothesis was it was Columbia, and so far it's panned out. It's working out from everything I've seen.
That's great. Uh, that's really good. What's been some of the highlights of some networking events that you've been to, or just any event you've attended?
Um, um, the five of us who sit in the back of the class in Cluster A went out for a Chinese dinner in Midtown. And it was supposed to be a quick thing because, some of us have families and work obligations the next day. It was a weeknight. We ended up staying out till probably 1 a.m. There may have been multi locations along the way. Um, and it was just a chance to get to know each other outside of the the professional or the academic setting. And they're incredible people, right? First and foremost, like whatever they accomplish or if they fail to reach their goals, I am sitting with a group of incredible human beings. And I think that's probably true if you took a random sample of anyone in our cohort to get to know people for who they are and what makes them who they are versus just what they do.
That's outstanding. Just the positivity keeps coming.
No,
So,
I don't
what's
even consider myself a positive person.
what? I mean, you don't have to answer it exactly because it's going to be hard to do. But what is Justin, and where is Justin in 5 years? And what I mean, well, the reason
Yeah.
I'm picking 5 years is we will have graduated. You'll be a couple years post graduation. Is the ideal that you get your boss's job, or you want to start your own firm, or just where are you thinking?
Um, yeah, I think this company that I'm at, Lancor, has uh, been wonderful to me. Right? They've let me pick all my coworkers. Who gets to do that? They've given me every opportunity. They're supporting me through Columbia, which, it's tough to go to your boss and say, "Can I have 2 out of 3 Fridays off for the next 2 years and then a couple weeks?" And also, I might want to go to South Africa and tack on a safari. So just know that's happening, right? Fortunately, my boss did this program 13 years ago. So he was very encouraging of it. He understands it. And so I think everything I want to do entrepreneurially, getting to know people, building something, I can do at this company, which is a rare situation that I'm hesitant to let go of.
That's good. That's really good that at a young age to find a company that you feel connected to, because I the stat might have gone up, but I remember the stat being the average person changes their career 5 times
Yeah.
within their lifetime.
Yeah. And listen, I mean, things change, and I try not to be blind to that, but the grass is always greener on the other side. And so when I get into a risk-taking mode, it's easy to say, oh, I should go change jobs or start my own thing or do this. And maybe the time comes for that. But I think the first question I ask, and because I've given the freedom to ask it and implement it, is what risk can I take here using someone else's money? And experimenting in almost in a playground, but there are real consequences. So that's part of the reason is my risk-taking appetite is fulfilled at this company.
That's good because that line, the grass is always greener. It is, but I feel it's the most green where you water. And
I love that.
a lot of times people just neglect where they're at. They put up their own walls, they live in their own misery, and then they're like, my life sucks. And it's like, well, maybe, but also maybe you're not doing this or that or whatever. And it sounds like you're watering the grass.
Well, I think that's a beautiful analogy. And when we had dinner a few weeks ago and we were talking about what you've been able to accomplish with the gyms you've built and turned around and the brand that you've created and how you want to scale it, that was one of the moments for me where I said, this is one of the incredible people that I'm meeting at Columbia. It's one of those moments where you realize it, right? I appreciate your positivity and optimism, and it's been something that's stuck with me since our first conversation.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate that. What a good note to end on right there. But thank you so much for coming on and being the first guest. And I don't know who hasn't met you, but I know that they're gonna love hearing this story because I've enjoyed every minute of getting to connect with you. So thank you so much, and thank
Do
you
you
for
think
just sharing.
anyone is going to listen to this?
I think, I think, I think tens of people are gonna listen.
I think tens of people. I would be happy with tens of people. And if you made it this far, congratulations. I should get you a gift or something just for suffering through it.
All right. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for tuning in and listening to Inside the Cohort.